Hey everybody, ronarray here, and 3.27 patch notes showcased a lot of nerfs to usual farming strategies that we've been using in 3.26. So in this video, I want to discuss what you can currently farm, what would be a nice option at the start, what got nerfed, and how those changes are going to affect our loot in general. Let's go. So first off, let's talk about what happened. And if you will look at endgame changes in the patch notes, you probably noticed a lot of direct and indirect nerfs to farming. And first off, its tier 17 maps modifiers now grant item rarity, item quantity, and pack size at values similar to red map modifiers, which is a pretty big nerf, because right now you'll have less item rarity, item quantity, and especially pack size in all tier 17 maps. As an upside, tier 17 map can now sometimes be corrupted to have 8 modifiers, so we will be able to craft new maps for ourselves, but adding only 2 modifiers on top is definitely not going to compensate for such a big change. But it's not the end of it, and there's more and more stacking. Next step is cartography scarp over risk now has a limit of 1. Cartography scarp over risk is giving your map 2 additional modifier, so just a corruption that GG showcased like exactly there would be similar to 1 cartography scarp over risk. And instead of 5 risks, right now you can use only 1. In the most situation, people not used 5 risks that often, but 3 or 4 risks been very common and a lot of variation of farming. For example, harvest farming usually required 3 scarabs of risks, and right now you'll have only 1, which going to lower quantity, pack size, and rarity all over again. The biggest issue here is mostly pack size, especially for pack size based strategies, when it's been always recommended to run multiple risks. And it is still not the end. On top of that, GG did another change. So right now, small passives in the mountain modifier clusters and small passives in chisel perfection cluster will grant rare monsters and magic monsters respectively, instead of increased effect of explicit modifiers. It's going to lower our general effect of explicit modifiers and going to lead to less loot in maps as well. So if we will look at any particular atlas right now, here is the mountain modifier, so we are losing that one, and here is also chiseled perfection right here, so we are losing that one, and that one. About 3 together. It's not going to change the effect that bigly, but it's still going to affect amount of loot, especially together with previous changes too. It's going to make maps easier on the other hand, which is pretty nice. But just amount of general loot and pack size is definitely going to go down. We still will have like chisel perfection itself like a big node, together with mountain modifiers, but overall effect of explicit modifiers is going to go down with that change, even if not that bigly. And it's mostly going to affect maps and particular strategies that require to reach some specific pack size, for example like harvest, to multiplicate your monsters and get more loot from them. But since you're going to have less modifiers overall, it's going to affect other strategies that been focused on just dropping raw currency too. That situation is leading us to a very important question. What we can even farm, especially at the league start, to make sure that we're receiving some currency, and what farm has been affected less. So now let's discuss what strategies been affected less by that change. And it's pretty much most of the strategies that not really that heavily based on amount of monsters and the pack size itself. So first off, that's the obvious pick, which is the Legion. Because when you're fighting the Legion, you're going to open chests, and chests are not heavily affected by those changes. And I believe that Legion is going to be very popular at the league start, because that's one of the most obvious ways to get some particular rewards without literally betting on the rest of the stuff. Next step is pretty much strong boxes. Strong boxes at least not connected to pack size that heavily. And I believe that boxes still will be pretty viable, but amount of scarab that you will need for boxes and price for that scarab is probably going to be pretty high. So I'm not exactly sure if I would go for boxes exactly at the league start, when Legion could work even on a budget. And another strategy that people used before being Abyss, but unfortunately right now the situation changed and GG decided to nerf Abyss Horde. Right now you can see Abyss Scarab of Edens no longer causes Abyss in area to spawn hordes as they travel. It instead now causes Abyss pits in area that do not lead to Abyssal Depth and spawn an Abyssal Trove, will spawn minor Stygian Spires. So no hordes and Abyss farm is completely gone right now. That's pretty sad because I believe Abyss hordes would be an interesting idea to farm in the current situation. And on top of it, I also believe that Blight right now should have a pretty decent results, especially in the separate Blight maps. Because separate Blight maps could get like a lot of rewards from the chests itself, and chests will be affected less. And another farm that we definitely need to mention is pretty much an ultimatum. I believe that an ultimatum could be one of the best options outside of the maps, because when you're farming just ultimatum itself and not ultimatum in the maps, you're not connected to all changes, to like explicit modifiers on your maps. You don't really care about it at all. So if you want to focus on farming ultimatum right now, I think it's probably one of the best ideas, because you're going to be outside of your maps, you don't care about Atlas at all, and you can still get a decent amount of rewards. However, I believe that farming ultimatum could be pretty boring and it will probably require a specific build. So if you're not going to focus on it, I probably wouldn't recommend to delve too deep into that part. And I don't think I'm going to farm ultimatum myself. Instead, I believe that I could try and pick up Expedition, especially early on, since Expedition providing you separate bonuses and separate currency that you can utilize with a rogue, that you can roll currency with. I think it's going to be less affected as well, because it consists of drops from the chests too. So right now, I believe Legion and Expedition will be pretty nice options. You can also try a Ritual, because Ritual is not that heavily connected, but amount of Tribute and Ritual being strictly connected to the pack size, and I think Ritual could be less profitable in the current conditions. But Legion, Blight, Storm Boxes and Expedition is literally my top choices right now. I believe that Legion is always going to come first if you can farm it, and the rest of the choices are probably going to come second. And another thing that probably will benefit from all those changes is heist farming. I believe that heist farming is going to be in a very nice position right now, because it's not affected by any modifiers and maps at all, because heist is not a map. So it's going to work completely separately, and farming heist could be very nice at the start when you just need a basic currency, and later on if you're going to literally focus on some particular parts of it, especially just going for specific bases in there. And on top of it, maybe those changes will make farming Sanctum more reliable. However, since Sanctum requires a very specific build and it been nerfed previously, I'm not exactly sure how big it's going to be. After all those changes, I believe that profiting from just trying to do other activities not connected to maps directly is probably the best idea. And if you still stuck with the maps, going for something which is working, such as Legion, such as Expedition, maybe particularly part of the Blight, could be a nice idea as well. And the last thing that could be absolutely insane to farm, but right now we don't know much about it, is the new breach mechanic. If we will be high on copium, we can practically come out with the idea that new breach is going to be absolutely insane and going to drop a lot of loot. However, right now we can't be sure about it, and we will need more information to confirm it and farm that mechanic or no. But based on the previous experience, I expect the breach farm to be at least decent, because it would be surprising if it would be like completely useless and will not provide anything. So I expect it to be at least medium good, or maybe even absolutely goated in the league itself. we will definitely need to test more of that farming. For example, some of them are going to be completely dark horses, so we will definitely need to test it in game. For example, stack deck farm could be still doable, bestiary farm could be alright, and stuff like that. It also will depend heavily on the economy that we will have at the start of the league. However, I believe that those changes will lead to less loot all across the board, and stuff will be more expensive as well, especially more expensive uniques and generally higher prices for the good stuff. So that's where I am at the moment before I started testing. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know what are you currently want to farm at the league start. Feel free to share your ideas, and see you next time. ronarray out.